least one of them was still suffering considerable anguish because of the treatment he had endured at the hands of the Israeli soldiers and other officials.
The mission received submissions and reviewed reports alleging the use of depleted uranium weapons by the Israeli armed forces during the military operations in Gaza.
As the small, heavy metal particles can slice through soft tissue and bone, survivors close to the lethal zone may have their limbs amputated and tungsten alloy particles embedded in their bodies. From the facts it gathered, the mission finds that the allegations that dime weapons were used by the Israeli armed forces in Gaza during the military operations require further clarification with regard to their use and particularly the healthcare needs of survivors of the amputations attributed to dime weapons.
A PRCS staff member told the mission that 3 days later, on January 8, 2009, PRCS was granted permission by the Israeli Armed Forces through ICRC to evacuate Iyad al-Samuni. The PRCS staff member found him on the ground in Salah ad-Din Street, in the place described by his relatives. He was still handcuffed. He had been shot in both legs and had bled to death.
Confirmed to the mission that the Israeli armed forces were fully aware that the school was being used as a shelter from July 5, 2005. UNRWA materials indicate that there were 1,368 persons in the shelter at that time. About 16 hours prior to the shelling on the afternoon of 6 January 2009, Israeli armed forces had already carried out at least one strike, destroying the house of Mr. Abu Askar.
Many civilians were transferred across the border to Israel and detained in open spaces as well as in prisons. The methods of interrogation amounted not only to torture in some of the cases, but also to physical and moral coercion of civilians to obtain information. These persons were subjected to torture, maltreatment, and foul conditions in the prisons. They were deprived of food and water for several hours at a time, and any food they did receive was inadequate and inedible. While in detention in Israel, they were denied due process.
Nasser Haji was ordered to undress and then pull his brother's body to another room, where the soldiers threw mattresses and blankets on the body. The body was still lying in the same position when Abba Haji returned to her home 2 weeks later. Her children asked her whether they would be killed as well. She told them to say the Shahada, the prayer recited in the face of death. Mrs. Haji also recalled that the soldiers were breaking the tiles on the floor of the house and digging in the earth below. Asked about this at the public hearing, she expressed the opinion that this was to obtain sand for the sandbags they subsequently placed on the roof of the house.